I just earlier today made a video called The Difference Between Identification and Opinion. I'm going to just continue giving my views. I haven't planned much for this video except the first bit that I'm going to say now. I thought the video was really good. I'm not deleting it, and I recommend watching it. But I got a bit mixed up when I started going about the Owen Jones bit. I can't remember what I was trying to say there, but what I will say here is that, which is something that's clear. I kind of like someone like Owen Jones a bit. He's still in the system, so he's still therefore potentially within that state superstructure, the takeover, the replacement. But the thing that I do like about him, although I cannot say yes, he's a good example like Caitlin Johnston or John Lennon, because Caitlin Johnston and John Lennon are out of the system. But Owen Jones at least criticises his own side now all the time. Now I think this is good because it's the job from where you've identified with, you know, say Paul identified, say, with liberals, say that my job would therefore criticise that side. Owen Jones' job is to criticise Labour all the time. Now you say, well, you could say, why isn't it the job for you to criticise the other lot who you're not with at all? Well, I think the problem when I look at people who spend all the time criticising the other lot is that how can you tell when they are being not brainwashed from when they are being not brainwashed and honestly criticising? That is the problem with that. How do you know? How do you know when they're being not only honest, but they're consciously aware of their prejudices and biases, yet they're still seeing through that something that they're authentically criticising? So how do you know when they are not being biased? This is the problem with, say, it doesn't mean to say that you give them a free pass. You've already said, you've already seen through that side. Your job is to see through this side. And we know that you're not being biased when you criticise your own side, but we don't know you're not being biased when you criticise the other lot for the 450th day running. It seems pretty obvious to me. And I think that's a very important point. Seeing through your own side kind of gets the health in your mind as well, because, you know, seeing through identifications is a maturity thing. It's healthy. And then, as I said in the previous video, the difference between identifications and opinion, well, watch that video and I make the other points about why this is a good thing to do. When you're not just ticking off, obviously then your mind's free. You're free from, when you're not just ticking off things that your identification tells you to think, then your mind is freed up, you've evolved, you've gotten past this. There have been a moment when you realised it, or maybe it just evolved so gradually you didn't notice it. It has happened anyway. It's crucial, it's part of development. Anyway, I've made the main points there, so I'll go to part 2 of this video now. I hadn't planned this, like how I was going to say it. So you could say back to me, oh Paul, you're always saying the poisonous, this, that and the other from the state superstructure, right? And yeah, they do have to go. But, yeah, that's a fair point. I mean, like, I don't think I'm perfect. Far from it. I've got to see through my identifications too, and it's not an easy thing to do. It's not an easy peasy lemon squeezy thing to do. And dog lover, that's an easy thing to do. It's easy to love my dog. I can't help it. It's just, I have to. This is like, this requires some thinking, some brain cells activation. I mean, it's your heart goes out to your own dog. So that's just like, so much of that is feeling. This also, but this, it requires think, reflect. Where am I like that? That sort of thing. And then you have the problem that while you're doing all this work, you still see others ridiculously with their head up the arse of their identification. So it drags you back down a bit, and then you have to drag yourself all the way back up again, and get focusing back on yourself. Where am I like that again for the millionth time? Some people are a lot slower at evolving than others. Some people go their entire lives without maturing. Most people do, I think. And some people do it automatically from like age 16 or whatever, and they never have these problems. So if you said to me, oh, I bet you think you're right at the front of the evolutionary pack pole. I think some people are so lucky that they aren't born into families and all that where there's this sort of identification with like power that manipulates them, that they never ever have to go through this process. So no, I don't think I'm at the front. I think I'm somewhere towards the back, but it's circumstantial, I say. But yeah, some people never ever for some reason develop. Now, so we get onto this thing about the state superstructure and how it needs to go. And it is a difficult point. On the one hand, constantly having this bombardment of power from the state superstructure that I have seen through, but it's still there. And on the other hand, my job is to criticise my own sort of like more, my own demographic. Well, by being outside of that state superstructure, I am criticising my own demographic in a way, because state superstructure's got tons of educated, degree, liberal types in it. And there's two parts of the state superstructure in general ideological terms. Basically, what the right would call a liberal metropolitan elite, which is, that's the side that I see through. And the other side of it, kind of like super rich billionaire fund clique of right wingers. I don't think they are quite as numerous as they sometimes look in the state superstructure. I'll give an example of that. Yesterday there was this National Conservative conference. The Conservative Party genuinely can't stand that sort of thing, most of them, because it goes further than they've gone into conservatism. They're more, there's a hefty chunk of conservatives at Westminster who are not much different from the liberal metropolitan elite. But it's really irrelevant that we need to bring the whole thing down, because there is enough divide and rule in there, which does mess about in that kind of right-wing way against people's heads. And there's 28 million Brits suffering stress from money issues, right? Now, that figure 28 million, study quoted by Sky News, it sounds like, well, is that true, really? Is that the figure? Because it's quite smart to get it close to being accurate when it's such a big number. But it across is that, you know, that could help with a bit of a revolution, couldn't it? Now, I also criticise my own side on the when I say that I think that those who agree with me on revolution being needed, I think that they want to replace meaning they want power for themselves. Not all of them, but I think most of them, without evidence, I think most of them. I haven't got evidence either way, but I look at human history, so it's not that I'm just saying that. And the potential for violence is a bad thing. So I am critical of my own side, and it is hard, I admit, to be, not because, it's not hard because I can't criticise my own side because it's some intellectual exercise that is too difficult. It's more like because I've done so much of that it's always hard to make the next load of criticism come into consciousness. It's like an ongoing process, and I might want to go this fast, but I can only go this fast. So I'm not some kind of super highly advanced artificial intelligence that just computes millions and millions and millions of things in my mind faster than the speed of light. But yeah, I think the task though is to see through your own side at all times. But seeing through your own side isn't so that you are with the other side. It's because you already see through that side. And if you talk about them, I mean, you must even suspect yourself. I suspect myself if I talk about the other side all the time of, well, where's the bias in that? And it's each person's responsibility to see through their own side. It's not their responsibility to be biased against the other side. That's how I'll end this video.